Hey guys, Darren Carr here, coach of Wise Ocean Pods, and welcome back to another episode of our round preview series. On today's episode, we will be previewing round 11, discussing some popular trade in and trade out targets, plus we'll go through the captains, and we'll touch on what we should be planning for the buys. Obviously, this is the last round before we hit the mid-season buys, so pretty much everyone should be looking at the buys at this point in time, even those that have left it quite late. You really need to be considering what you're going to be doing for the next sort of 3 to 4 weeks with who your targets are, who you're going to get out, and hopefully even looking at what your team's going to be looking like over those rounds. So we'll get into that a little bit later, but we'll first touch here on the most trade in, trade out targets for the week. So we'll start here quickly with the trade out targets. I think we should be pretty quick this week because I think it's a pretty common theme across the board here. So pretty much a lot of it is red dot rookies, I think, is the main consensus across the board here. So we've got Kobe McKercher. I think he needs to go. He's number 2 on my list, just given the report that came out, I think yesterday or the day before, it sounds like he's going to be a bit further away than what we first thought. I think a lot of people are hoping that post-bye he's good to go, or they were even hopeful that this week he was going to be back, but it sounds like he's only just started walking and putting pressure on that foot again. So they're really taking a conservative approach with him for this bone stress. So it does sound like it could be a bit worse than what we sort of first anticipated. So I think just trade him out. If he does come back, then we can look at trading him in again at some stage. But I think more than likely he is going to be out for a little while just yet. Maybe talking 2 to 3 weeks still. So I think it's just best to trade him out, use that money on his head, and yeah, you'd be better off for it in the long run. Number 2 is Will Graham. So he's obviously a red dot rookie as it currently stands. I am quite bullish that he might actually return this week. I'm obviously fingers crossed because I have him in my side, and I'd love to be able to hold him for a few more weeks while he generates some cash. So I'm hoping he comes back in, but also he has plenty of money on his head. So if he isn't named, then I can see why people are trading him out. Probably facilitates a lot of those trades. So yeah, I do recommend moving off of him if he isn't playing, but if he does play, then it's probably worth holding him and making those trades around him. Nat Fife, my boy, is on my list of trade out targets as well. I think he's at number 4 there. Has a high break even, has dropped a couple bad scores, honestly. 28 when he was sub, then back-to-back sort of 60s. In tougher matchups, it must be said. So I do expect him to jump up a little bit this week against the Pies. So I'm personally looking at holding him, just because I think he's scoring just as much as a rookie. So I don't think it's hurting me too much there. And I have no one else in the forward line that's really worth fielding in, around him. So trading him out for me and for my team doesn't seem worth it because it's just going to be trading him to like a Sexton or something like that. So I'm still having to field a Reed, or then I may even have to look at fielding a rookie that I grabbed this week, or even a Thomas. So just for me, I think he's worth holding through the buys. Hopefully he can pop a decent score, and yeah, at the end of the day, starting next week it's the buys and it's best 18. So even if he does drop a stinky score during that week, then it doesn't hurt me too much. So I don't mind holding him just there, but I do recommend if you don't have too much other things to do and it still improves your team, then I would recommend moving him on. He's losing cash, so it's time for him. I don't think he's at any risk of being sub or being rested, obviously with a bye coming up in a couple of weeks, so just something to note there. It seems like, say, that was the last time he was sub, I thought. About every 5 weeks, so that last time would get him straight through to his bye, so no concerns there. Hugh Garcia again, red dot. Fingers crossed again he comes back because he did play a really good game in the VFL. I think he had like 28 disposals, a couple of goals, and plenty of clearances. So could definitely use him. But they're also, in saying that, they have Brad Crouch, who played a really, really good game in the twos as well, who is fighting for a chance to come back into the senior side after his knee injury, I thought it was. So yeah, he could probably be stuck behind him and continue to red dot for us. So it's an awkward one because he is below 400k, so it's a tough price. So, but if you can make it work, then I definitely recommend it. Dusty Jones is injured. I think he's out for 3 to 4 weeks, so I think he's one to jump off as well. Blake Howes, I'm probably in the mindset that you want to hold him again this week. He's got St Kilda, so we know what friendly matchup they are for defenders, so he could definitely have a pretty big pop score this week, so I'm looking to hold him. Break even's not too bad, so he could make some money or he could lose very minimal at the end of the day, so I'm more than willing to hold him through this. But in saying that, if his money on his head gets you to the player you want, then by all means do it. Seth Campbell, he is a tested play this week, so even saying that, I still think he's worth trading out. He's in my plans currently to move on, so I don't mind moving him on. It's just if you're struggling for players that are going to play throughout the buys, I do think he's a fair chance to actually play every game. Like, look at his track record. He's only missed the one game, which was last week due to injury, so I assume he slots back in. Tigers are really struggling for, players at the moment, so they more than likely will play him and he'll play every game up until his bye, which isn't a too bad of a run when you look at it, so I don't mind holding him there if you're in that thought process. Matt Roberts is my number one trade out target. If you didn't trade him out last week, then I still would highly recommend jumping him off him this week. Unless you're really struggling for players on field, then that's the only way I'd hold him. He's just going to lose a bunch of coin. Obviously, we saw the role change up onto the wing a little bit, so he could drop, a 50 here, and that could be really disastrous for his cash generation, and you're really going backwards at that point. So, best to just cash him out. Even if it means you're holding 300k for next week, then I'd actually recommend that, but rather than holding him. So, yeah, there's that. Sam Closey is an interesting one because I still think it's probably 1 week too early to move him on. But in saying that, I don't mind moving him on if the cash on his head, it's nearly 600k, right? So the cash on his head gets you up to that primo you're looking for, that upgrade that you've been eyeing off. So I definitely recommend that. Especially when you've got sort of two sides of the coin this week where people are going, okay, let's do a red dot fix up where we're trading at 2 red dots and we're getting in a Sexton because it's not that much of an upgrade to a price wise. Like Sexton's 570k, so it's not that hard to get 2 primos that are sort of topped out to him and then have a cash cow come in at the other side as well. So that's one side of the coin, whereas another side of the coin is people have money to spend and they're looking for that massive upgrade, whether that's a Marshall, a Zorko, or even a little bit cheaper guys in, an Oliver or a Cripps or a Day, or even the middle table 900k guys. You got Dawson, you got Merritt, you got all those sort of guys that there's so many different options you can go this week, but I think the most consensus is most people are going to Sexton just to really set themselves for the buy. So, but going back to Closey, I still think he is a really good option to move on if you need to, in saying that. So, Cadman needs to go. That's pretty obvious. Harvey Thomas, I don't think he needs to go. In the same time, obviously his break even's higher now. I just like his job security while the other guys are out, so he can provide some decent scores on field for us, particularly through buys and even this week with the Cats. So I don't mind holding him again this week. I may look to move him off next week, but yeah, definitely I don't mind moving him off this week, but I don't mind having him sitting there on my bench either. Caleb Windsor, what did he do on the weekend? 46, yeah, his time's pretty much up. He does play on the wing, so it could be not too bad against the Saints. So his price is pretty good, 533k. That's time to move him on. And that was a poor score against the Eagles. You would have thought that would have been much bigger. So I don't mind moving him on there. Sanders needs to go. Doesn't look like he's coming back anytime soon. Lazaro, has he even played the last couple of weeks? No, he did. Was he the sub again? Of course he was the sub again. Yeah, he just needs to go. He is plummeting now, so he's just going backwards and not providing anything. So move him on if it facilitates your trade. Parrish, unfortunately, needs to go for those owners that jumped on a couple weeks ago. Obviously, he was late out on the weekend. And he's now been ruled out for 3 weeks, I believe, with, was it a hamstring or something? I can't remember. I should have pulled up the... I can probably quickly do that right now for you guys. Essendon. So Parrish is out for 3 weeks with a calf. Okay, yep, that makes a bit more sense. So that's pretty frustrating for owners, especially because you only brought him in probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. If you got the big score from him 2-3 weeks ago now, then you'd be laughing. But if you brought him only in last week, then it's a pretty tough one to swallow at the end of the day. But it needs to be done. Tom Powell is another one that just cops a lot of hate, which I don't understand why. I get he's coming up against Port Adelaide, but at the end of the day, he hasn't been too bad. He sort of like reminds me of Fisher from the start of the season, where he was sort of doing like 80s through most of the start of the season. He was just copying about a bunch of hate to trade him out. But there's no one else up there that's doing anything better. Like, I don't mind him sitting in my field, putting up 75s to 80s. He's got a good role, so he's going to put up a pop score here and there. So I would just be inclined to hold him. I don't understand the move to trade him out. Moving on to Rankin, he needs to go. Obviously, he is out for 3 to 4 weeks, I think, with that hamstring. Yeah, 3 weeks with a hamstring. So anyone that jumped on him the last couple of weeks with that good run coming up, that's a bit unfortunate. But hopefully you got the last 2 scores where he went, averaged over 100. So there's that. Desmond needs to go. People are still holding him. Cherry's an interesting one because I know a lot of people are looking at trading up to Rowan Marshall this week. Just can no longer look at the scores and want to get a leg up on the competition because the Marshall is quite unique in the top sort of 1,000 or so. And I don't mind it because when I think of the buy structure, obviously you've got Cherry who has round 12 buy, so it's either this week or probably next week you want to move off him anyway. And I don't mind getting a head start on it, getting him off now while Marshall's still achievable. He's just over $1 million, but by the end of next week, he may be closer to 1.1, areas we haven't seen before. So it's going to be really unachievable by that time. Well, not unachievable, but you're really breaking your team to get it to happen. Whereas if you do it now, it's only costing you just over 200k. Just under 200k to get Cherry to a Marshall. And I do think that's quite a good upgrade. It's probably not the biggest upgrade in terms of like points wise on field because Cherry has been really good. He's averaging 100, so you're probably getting 15 points, possibly even 20 points on top of him over the duration of the season. Plus you got probably another captain option. Obviously Marshall's been putting up some massive ceiling scores, so he provides that. So I don't mind that option. Depends what else you're doing with that trade, I guess. Most people will just be doing a Cherry up and then probably a downgrade. I don't mind that. It's just it doesn't feel like it's a huge upgrade as such. So, but I do like Marshall as an upgrade. Similar with a Grundy. I know Grundy's not on this list here or down here a little bit. Only 500 players trading him out. But he's in a very similar boat where very similar priced. Same buy, so if you do have both Cherry and Grundy, then you really need to look at something, whether that's this week or next week, because you're not going to have a ruckman for the buy, and then it would be a pretty simple upgrade. Just go to, you'd probably just go straight to Marshall at this point in time. Gawn hasn't looked too interested, and English has dropped to poorer scores as well, so something to consider there. I know a few people are looking to trade out a Brodie Grundy, especially because he is pretty shocking away from the SCG, sorry. And he's at Marvel this week, so he could put up a pretty stinky score. I think the last time was at Hawthorn where he dropped to 72. So, but wait and see that one. Couple more here. Where are we at? Gallagher needs to go. Reed is an interesting one as well. Obviously, he's put up his best score for the season. He looked really good in that game. Do you just hold him through the next 3 weeks to get him through his bye? It's probably my opinion. He's going to be pretty consistent unless he cops a rest, which is highly unlikely, I think. Obviously, he played the first 6 weeks, and then 6 weeks gets him through to his bye. So I think they're just looking at it as in terms of 6 weeks blocks. So I think hold him into his bye. He's going to be pretty consistent in terms of, he'd be fieldable for you. I think he has the last bye as well. Is that correct? Yeah, I think so. So, yeah. I'll probably pull it up here with my bye structure. Have a look. No, he plays around 14. So you hold him for around 14, or you even... No, you probably just trade him out around 14, and then you can probably get big upgrades there. So I'd be looking to hold on to him unless, again, the money on his head gets you something that you're looking for. But I'd probably even look at moving off a closey before him. I just think the job security and the role of a Reed is a bit better than a closey as such. Dempsey probably can still go as well. Like I said, always be mindful of buys, whether you need him or not. He's got the round 14 buy. And I think that's probably where we'll finish it off. A few people are trading at Jax McRae and Bontempelli. I can see why, but I personally wouldn't be doing it. Tom Stewart needs to go. People trading out Tom Green. That's an interesting one. I definitely wouldn't be doing that either. He's possibly even a better trade-in target given the matchup he has this week. So anyone that's trading him out needs to double check, and yeah, I wouldn't be recommending that at all. And a few people are still trading out Harry Sheezel. I'll probably just quickly talk about him a little bit. Would I be trading out Harry Sheezel this week after I traded him out last week? Probably not. I know he's got Port Adelaide, high break even. The role was still a bit unsure. Obviously, Bergman went down on the weekend, and that meant that Sheezel went back and filled that role for the second half. And that's where we saw his score uptick quite quickly, and he put up a 119 at the end of the day, so not too shabby at all. The concern is if, teams are announced and then the likes of a Dawson comes back in after his injury, or a Hardiman comes in and fills that role, which I can definitely see as possibilities. So if one of those two are named, or if both of them are named, then there's concern and you may want to look to move him off. But there's every chance that he still plays in that back line this week, given their injuries and given that they probably need a bit more experience down there. So it's an interesting one. He's probably going to lose another, 30K this week. It's probably worth just holding on to him. Unless you can do sort of a one down, one up sort of thing. So you're getting him to a top line guy, like I did last week with a Ryan, or a day cost or something like that. It's not going to cost you. It's saving you 30K, so it's a bit tough. Then you're sort of sidewaysing a rookie to a Sexton possibly. So yeah, it's the only way I'd look at that. But yeah, he's definitely one to watch. I'm still highly concerned with him. Obviously, I traded him out last week, and I think in the long run it'll be better off for me not having him. And I think everyone will jump off him at some stage, but he did have a big uptick in his CBAs on the weekend as well. So if he can, continue that trajectory and have closer to 50%, if not tick that over to 60%, then I do much prefer that role than what he has been doing in the last couple of weeks, where it was 30% and he was playing a lot more forward. If he plays this sort of 30% midfield role and 70% forward, I think he's probably a 90 player. If he plays this sort of 50 to 60% in the midfield, then I reckon he can probably push 100, 105. So it's still well off his 120 that he was when he was a backman, right? But it's still doable in terms of, he probably pushes that top six. If not, he's probably secured in that top six if he has a bit more midfield role. Especially with the natural progression. Obviously, this is be his first year in the midfield. So just over the next couple of weeks, he'll get better at the stoppages. And we know how good he is at transition ball, so there's no worries there. I think that'll probably finish it for the trade out targets. We spent 20 minutes alone on that. So just to quickly clarify and touch on my trade out targets. So I got Matt Roberts as number one, needs to go. Going to lose a lot of coin, and I don't think you want him anymore. Kobe McKercher, we spoke about him a little bit, given that the report looked like he's going to be out for a little while longer. Unless you want to take the risk and hold him for the next 2 weeks in hopes that he comes back, that's definitely a play. But I think most people will just jump back on straight away anyway, and you're not really getting much benefit besides saving those two trades, I guess. But I still think he's worth trading out given his price tag. Number 3, I sort of shithoused it and put all the red dot rookies. So you're talking Will Graham, Garcia, Dempsey, Seth Campbell, Cadman. He's probably not a red dot rookie, but he's pretty much a round up. Sanders, all those sort of likes that just need to be traded out. Probably trade two red dot rookies, getting ready for the buys, and then bringing in 2 upgrades as such as like a Sexton and then a cash cow. So just really setting yourself for the buys, making sure you have the most players available, because at the end of the day you want to have 22 on field at as much as possible. But yeah, we'll go from that. We'll move on to the most trading targets, where we'll probably do a bit more in depth. So, no surprisingly, it is Alex Sexton who is number 1, and for very good reason. He's come back and put up 2 pretty big scores for his price tag at 88 and 126. So, probably not going to expect 126 each week, because that was pretty unique. But I still think he can be an 80 player. Like I said in the start of the season, I don't have too much to expect from him. 80s probably makes him close to probably 750k. I'll probably chuck that in here. 700k. So if he can make 130k within the next sort of 3 weeks while he is taking this Will Power role, then that's absolutely fine, and I'd take that in a heartbeat. So that's probably the only downside of it, right? He's got the next 3 weeks until his bye. And that's going to be the tricky point. What are we doing at that buy? Are we trading him out? Because there's every chance that these next 3 weeks he looks like a top 6 forward. But then after the buy, when Will Powell is available, does he instantly get dropped? And then we're forced with a forced trade to trade him out, which isn't so bad. I won't say that, because we've still got the 3 trades, so it's still possible to move him on, and it's not too bad. We just treat him as sort of like a mid-pricer, and we move him on. It's a very short-term play, and my recommendation for people that are sort of contending is that if you have this gut feeling that Sexton isn't going to be the player that we're all sort of expecting, and he does go back to being this, shit player, then go against it. Go against it and get that secure upgrade. Like I was talking about, you want to go to those 900k players or just below that are going to be that top of the line, and you're going to have for the rest of the season. Then I'd highly recommend that over going this risky play of Alex Sexton, even though he's going to make some coin and is possibly going to be top 6 in his line. It's just the flag that he is a possibility to get dropped, because we saw he was out of favour when the likes of Powell was in. So that's just something to consider. I'll probably even bring that up just here. We got Will Powell due back around 15. And then Weller's still a fair way off, so that's not too much of a concern there. But really no one else is fighting for that spot. You got Buderick in the 2s, who have been putting up some pretty good numbers, but again, while Sexton is being quite efficient with his ball use, all it takes is 1 week for him to be off, and then he could be dropped again. So just something to consider. It is still a risky play, but I definitely think it's worth taking given his price tag. And it's come at the perfect time, right, where most of us are trying to fix up those red dot rookies, set out for the buys, and he's just sort of that perfect price to be able to do that. So that's why he's number 1. Then we go through a bunch of rookies here with Joel Frazier. Is that how you say it? Yeah. No, I'll just go with it. He is my number 1 trade-in target this week, just given the few injuries at the Dogs. It was a sort of a toss-up between Richards and Frazier, just given, obviously, everything that's going on. We know Collingwood have a lot of injuries, but they have a few players returning this week. But I do think Richards would be pretty safe. He's not quite a tall forward, but he's still... he's been really good, probably one of the best of those rookies that have been playing at the Pies. Just 1 second, guys. So yeah, Joel Frazier is number 1. So he's still fairly priced as well, 266. Next week he will be over 300k, so probably wouldn't touch him then. Richards is also just under 300k, so he's prime for picking. Great break even as well. Probably not the greatest run in terms of like scoring potential. Like these next 3 are probably pretty hard because they're pretty contested games, but then he's got North before his bye, so really you're just picking up. Hopefully he just plays the next 4 games, makes you probably 150k or so, gets up to 400k or 450k, then you can move him on his buy. Kane McAuliffe, I think that's how you is number 5 for me, because I still think he's worth picking up next week. Just given his price tag is 244k, so if he puts up another decent 60, he's probably going to be about 280. What do you got this week? 34k, so if he puts up another 60, he'd probably be closer to 290 or something like that. So he's still worth picking up next week. So I've got him in my trade plans next week, just given, I don't think he's worth picking up just yet, unless you've already got the likes of these other guys, which I know a few people players have. I'm just saying there's no risk in waiting a week and still paying under 300k for him. Zach Fisher is another hot topic name this week, where a lot of people are trying to get him in after his back-to-back hundreds. And I do like it. I know he has his bye in round 12. And he has the what's it called? The Port Power. So it's just, he's going to go up in price this week, so he's probably going to pay 750 for him sort of after his bye. What is he going up? He won 47k last week with that 120. So let's just say he goes close to 100 again. He's probably going to be closer to 730k, which is still fairly priced. Like that's no dramas to get onto him pretty quickly in round 13 when he comes back. So that's probably my preference. Hold off until the week after, but there's every chance that he's going to be the F4 for us for the rest of the season. He's role secure, definitely a lot more secure than a Sexton. So if you have the extra cash to go up to him from a Sexton, then I'd even recommend that, honestly. Like I personally like Sexton over Fisher, but if you're not confident with a Sexton, and obviously it's a short-term play, there's every chance that you probably just should go with a Fisher who has that secure role. It's very unlikely that's going to change for the rest of the season, and he's going to consistently put up these very nice scores of probably 100 to 105 for the remainder of the season. It's just, again, look at your buy structure. Let that determine your trades a little bit this week. Crisp is another one that's been popped up in the last couple of days, just given the news of a Degoe being out for the next, 2 to 4 weeks, and then you had Tom Mitchell that's out for another 2 to 5 weeks. So let's have a quick look here. So yeah, Tom Mitchell's at 2 to 5, and where is Degoe? To be continued. So not really too sure on what's happening with him. He's got an abdominal issue, but I think I've seen an approximate timeline of 3 to 4 weeks. So he could be out for a little bit, which means Crisp can continue this role that he's been, having over the last 3 to 4 weeks. So, and these are the scores that we should continue to expect. Looking at the tough matchups, obviously he put up a ceiling score 130 against the Eagles. Keep doing that. It doesn't have quite the easy matchups in that time frame. He's got North in his last one, so I don't mind it. It doesn't specifically suit my team or many other teams, I don't think, given that we have so many defenders. I know a lot of people are still running a Bonner or a Martin in their midfielder, so it's probably not my favourite trade, whereas you're paying less for these guys in the forward line like a Fisher or a Sexton that are probably a lot closer to being top of the line than what Crisp is going to be. He's not going to be there for long term. You're probably only having him for the next 4 weeks, and then you're trading him out of his buy, which is a good buy player, don't get me wrong. And he's probably going to make 100k or something around there if he can keep continuing these scores, which we all know he can do. We have seen him in the past be a top of the line defender where he's playing, midfield time. So we know how good he can be, and he has that more defensive midfielder. We see that with his tackles. He reminds me a lot of a Jack Steele, just with his hard ball gets, and he loves the tackle. So I definitely don't mind him there. So if you're looking at him, I definitely recommend it. It's just personally not for my team or for many other teams, I don't think. So I wouldn't be forcing that to happen. Bruce, I still don't mind him as a trade him. I think he's number 3 on my list. Put up a 67 in, super easy matchup. He's got Hawthorn this week again. Then he's got the bye, so that's the only sort of risk with him. I still think he'll be pretty safe. Who do they have coming back for them? They've got... It doesn't even say here. Starcevic is expected to return, and Zach Bailey could also return. So, big watch on if he is still named. I still think he might be in the team. I can't see why they drop him. He's been playing pretty well. Even kicked the goal last week, so it'd be pretty hard to drop him, I would say. So, just watch teams if you're wanting to pick him up. For anyone that has him, you're just holding him. It's pretty straightforward there. Rowan Marshall, we already spoke about him a fair bit when the trade-out targets, obviously, with being quite big and with how he's gone the last couple of weeks. And yeah, I do think he's a great trade-in target, given, a few of those ruckmen need to go quite soon, whether you got Grundy or a Cherry. I definitely wouldn't be going a Gawn. I know Gawn's been a little bit down in recent form, but I still wouldn't be trading him out to a Marshall. I feel like that's very sideways. It's not really gaining him much points, and there's every chance that Gawn outscores a Marshall this week. So Oliver's still up there in my trading targets. I think he's number 2 for me, just given his price tag. He put up a 94 in what was a tagged game, so that's just really good signs for him. Didn't get any marks just given that tag, so he just got his way there with the tackles. And he just looks like he's ready to blast off again. So I'm really bullish on him, and I think he's a great trading target if you didn't grab him last week. Couple more here, then we'll move on to the rest of the video with the trade captain and stuff. So Phillips, probably not the one I'll trade in. There's no guarantee that he plays this week, given that they have Scrimshaw and Sicily due back. I believe that's the case anyway. Gonna have a quick look. I went past them, didn't I? Where are they? So we've got Sicily, who's a test, and Scrimshaw was suspended, so he's definitely back this week, you'd think. The thing with that is exciting about Ethan Phillips is the likelihood of him being held, and then you get Sicily beside him. So there'll probably be Frost, Phillips as the number 2 sort of key defenders, and that sort of frees up Sicily a little bit. So that means Sicily could, be back on the menu pretty shortly if they decide to keep Ethan Phillips in. He's 700k, he's super cheap, he's dropped 224k for the season. So he could be very ripe for the picking very shortly, even as soon as next week, honestly, if Phillips stays in, and that frees up Sicily. We know how good he can be, we also know how bad he can be, just given the volatility in the role. So big watch there for that one. Dane Zorko, don't hate it. He's actually in my top 5 as well. He's just been hurting anyone that doesn't have him. So if you can get to him, I absolutely recommend getting on him. He doesn't look like he's going to miss a game at all this season. He'll be fine. Good matchup this week as well. I do think there's a possibility that he gets tagged, like whether that's through a McGuinness coming in or whether just one of the Hawthorn forwards just keep him a bit more accountable with our pressure. So I don't expect these massive ceiling scores, but there's every chance that he's still going to be well up there and puts up a decent 100 for you as well. So I don't mind it. Low break even as well, so he's going to pretty much guaranteed make money. Heaney, I think people are finally pulling the trigger now that the news that Parker is suspended for 6 stupid weeks for some stupid reason. That was definitely not worth 6 weeks. That's just stuff to shit. I feel for the Sydney Swans fans that have to endure that silly suspension. That was ridiculous. I get it was off the ball, but it was just a classic hip and shoulder off the Shepherd where someone's running past. So unbelievable. But I think Isaac Heaney's worth jumping on. He's sort of probably bottomed out in price in terms of he went down a couple of weeks ago with some lower scores. Now he's looking to really increase that again. Again, just look at your buys, round 12 buy, so you only get 1 week from him. He is pricey, so just make sure you're looking at buys and make your structure's fine. And that's I'll probably touch on buys a little bit later, but yeah. Ed Allen, probably not worth jumping on just yet. I like to wait 1 week, so I want to see how good he is first, and then jump on him next week. There's every chance that he stinks it up this week, and then he's a red dot. Right? There's no point doing that. You want to jump on guys that actually look like they're going to perform and be consistent in their side. So it's not worth taking the risk for me on these sort of guys, unless you know something that the rest of us don't, and you think he's highly rated. It's just the concern is, they've brought in McRae before him. You got a Sullivan before him, who are playing very similar roles in terms of being a midfielder. So he still seems like he's behind those guys, and there's every chance he gets dropped next week when they have a few guys return. Tom Green, I don't mind trading him as well. I know his break-even's a little high, like 121. That's not super bad. The matchup is great, so there's every chance that he blows us out of the water. And even a sneaky peek, he is in my captains, top 5 captains this week, which is, I think he's just due for a big one. He's had a few downer weeks after his injury with a bit of management, and then last week, so I think he's due for quite a big one, and we could see a score very similar to this. But I think that will sort of do it for most trading targets. We're going through a fair few options there. Probably should actually talk about the likes of Will Day, because I know a few people are talking about him. Being a Hawthorn boy, I absolutely love Will Day. I think his potential is huge. And obviously, I owned him all last year. He was a great pick from the start of the season. I do highly like his potential. It's just his price at this point in time, 724k. While it is good and he is 140k cheaper than what he started as, his run is quite horrible. He's got quite a few tougher ones in here, so you're really just eyeing off that Tigers matchup. There's also the injury history. As good as he is, he has been quite injury prone throughout his career. Even last year, he had stints on the bench, just with a few injuries here and there, plus suspensions as well. As we all know, 3 weeks for a classic tackle. But I think you can wait one more week. His break even's not super high. It's not super low that he's going to get away from you this week. So I'd still be recommending getting on a Sexton, or if you're looking in that market, or someone around that price where you can sort of wait on these guys, where there's other guys around him that are going to skyrocket. Like even if you're looking at Cripps, I'd probably go with the Cripps before you go with the Will Day. Just given, he's shown a ceiling a bit more than what Will Day has to this standpoint. I know it was against Port and it played out really well in his favour. He looked really good in that. He kicked the goal. And he looked back to that classic Will Day of old from last year. He's just not going to be top of his line. He's not going to make a huge amount of coin very quickly. Where you want these next 4 weeks, you really want him to skyrocket and give you 100, 150k back up to where his price was previously. But again, if you're shopping in this range and he's the only one you get to, I definitely don't mind it. I've even played around with it myself if I can facilitate it, but I think I've just gone other ways. And I think that'll sort of do it for the trade-in target. So we'll just quickly clarify them here. So my main trade-in target is Sexton. That's pretty obvious. I think everyone's pretty much doing that this week, so I don't need to talk about that too much. Number 2 is still Oliver. If you didn't pick up him, I'd still highly recommend him over the likes of Crisp and Day, all in that sort of price range. I've got Fisher at number 3. Just given that he's probably going to be top of his line. Not top of his line, sorry. He's going to be F4 for the rest of the season. I think that's pretty safe to assume that. Unless there's going to be some sudden change, which Clarko does love to do at this point in time, just throwing the magnets around. He will make some money from here on out. It's probably just worth trading. Why he's not higher on this list is just because I don't mind waiting for the week after his bye. So, don't trade him in this week. Trade him in round 13, where he actually does have quite a run. So, don't mind that. Number 4, I have Zach Merritt. It's just probably that sugar hit this week, given that he has the Tigers, and he could definitely put up quite a big score here. He could even hit this break even. Tigers just don't tag anyone. They don't seem to care about anyone, so hopefully they use him a fair chunk through the midfield, which he's been quite good at recently. I know he had a poor score last week where he got tagged. Even the week before that, he had a tougher game. So I'm expecting to have a pretty big bounce back week against the Tigers, and yeah, big sugar hit. He's probably getting very close to being bottomed out in price. If you don't pick him up this week, then I'd highly recommend looking at picking him up after his buy in round 14. So round 15 trade him straight in. He goes... I should bring it up here. He goes... Where is it? So he goes West Coast, Geelong, Collingwood, Melbourne, Adelaide. So they're all really good matchups. Collingwood have typically a bit easier. Melbourne have their day here and there. So I definitely highly recommend picking up him there. If you pick him up this week, then you're getting a decent run until he's bye, and then you're holding him through. So definitely don't mind that at all. Just quietly as well. If you don't have a day cost, then he's probably worth picking up next week. If not, after his bye as well. Just something to consider. Just trying to give you some guys' advice to look forward and make sure you're making plans with who you want to trade in for each buy. Plans may not go fully to plan, as they never do. There's always injuries, there's always bullets we cop, but at least you have some structure and some thought process. You're not relying week to week on what's new and making some rational decisions. Where were we at? So that was Zach Merritt, and number 5, I've sort of done two big dogs at the same time. So I've gone Zorko. I just think it's worth paying up for him now. Even though he has his bye next week, he could put up a very big score this week, and then even the next 2 weeks after that. So I actually have the plan to get him in after round 12, just given... Oh, I did not mean to click on that. Yeah, he's got 2 really good matchups after his bye. I'm going to be able to trade out 3 players, so hopefully that gives me enough coin to go up to him, and that sort of shores up my forward line a little bit. But looking at the way my trades are going to go, I'm going to have a full team of primos coming out of the buys in round 16. So that's the ideal structure you want to have. You really want to look at who you're trading in for the next 3 to 4 weeks and what your team's going to look like at the end of the buy. So you're not having too many midfielders, or you're not having too many defenders or forwards or such as like that. So something to consider. And I threw Moral Marsh in there as well, because I know a few people are looking to trade out a Rockman. So there's that. We'll go to quickly look at the downgrade targets. This did change on me for some reason. Just quickly, rookies. So Joel Frazier, number 1. I think his job security is pretty good, and he also looks like he has some decent scoring potential. Just given what he's been able to do last couple of weeks. So I don't mind him there. The role actually looks really good as well, so I definitely highly recommend him if you haven't picked him up. Jara Richards is number 2. Again, probably lower break even, so he's probably going to make a lot more money in the short term. Like obviously this week, has shown some really good scoring potential against a couple easy opponents. So when he comes up against these next 3, he may not have the same sort of scoring output, is my gut feel. So that's something I'm highly considering here. But yeah, I definitely still recommend him if you don't have him. He's going to stay in the team. Kane McAuliffe is number 5 down there. Like I said, you probably wait 1 more week. He's not super urgent to trade in. So where these other guys, this is probably the last week to trade those guys in. Who do I have at number 3? Sullivan, who is not actually on here. Oh, can I go break evens? How do I go break evens? You'd think I know how to do this by now. General stats. BE. There we go. What break-even does he have? He has a break-even of 0. So I still think he's still a decent trade. Yes, he's over 300k now, but his job security looks pretty good. He's getting CBAs, so his role is probably the best of the lot. Just a bit more pricier now. Hasn't shown a huge ceiling, even in these easier matchups. So maybe he likes the contested ball a little bit more, so we'll probably see that a little bit in these next couple matches. And number 4 was Bruce Reveal. I still think he's going to be pretty secure in this side, so I definitely wouldn't mind picking up him if you haven't already. But that'll sort of do it for the downgrade targets. Now let's move into the captains this week. So I'll quickly bring up the fixture, and we'll go through one by one what I'm sort of thinking through, and then we'll go through my top 5 and even my other considerations. So first game, we got Western Bulldogs and Sydney. So obviously we have the likes of Bontempelli, Tim English, you got a Grundy over here, you got a Heaney, probably the only ones that you can really consider. None of them have really jumped out at me for this game. Obviously it is quite a tougher match for either of them, including Ruckman, both quite tough, so I probably wouldn't consider either of them. Bontempelli hasn't looked like himself, so he's probably not worth chucking the C on. He could even cop a tag. Another one you probably don't want to touch is Treloar. If you have a Treloar, I know he's quite unique, but probably not worth throwing the VC on him, just given there could be a tag coming his way as well, and Sydney Swans have been a tougher matchup for midfielders. Heaney's been pretty consistent, I will say that, but he probably won't give you the ceiling score that you're looking for a VC. So that's probably just why they haven't made my top sort of 10 or whatever. Moving on to this game, you got Fremantle v Pies. So who we got here? We got Sarong, we got Young, we got Ryan. You got Brayshaw there if you're looking at him. It's probably about all, maybe even a Dry Clark. Probably not worth throwing anything on him. Did pop a big score last week though. I don't mind Luke Ryan and Sarong in this game. I'm probably not trusting Hayden Young with the C or the VC. No real data to back it up because both of them didn't do well last year. Like Ryan put up a 90 against the Pies last year, but they have been quite a better matchup in terms of defenders. So they are a light green, so he could be a lot better this week. But I do like Sarong. We have seen likes of Dawson and Crouch went 115 plus last week. So these guys definitely do concede points to midfielders. So there's every chance that Sarong does pretty well and can put up a big ceiling score. I think he's due for one as well. So definitely don't mind putting the VC on him, although he doesn't make my my top 5, just given there was no history on him last year. I think he missed this game. So have to wait and see on that one. Besides that, you have really only Nick Dacos on the other side. He had a 132 against them last year, but Fremantle have been a bit of a tougher side given this year, given they're a bit more competitive. So I haven't included it in my top 5 either. In this game, not really. You probably could look at a Sheasel, but I'm personally just still a bit worried about his job security. Not job security, sorry, his role. So I haven't really considered him at all. The only one you really want to consider here is Butters, and still, he scored a 118 against them last year. But he really hasn't shown a lot of ceiling scores this year. I think the highest score he's had is like a 120 something. I'll probably even have a look because he's in my team. Let's have a quick look. 128. So that was his highest score. He's been really consistent in terms of what he scores. It's just no ceiling score, so he's not really one. You're probably a safe C score, but not a super high VC score. Plus, you got the likes of Rosie returning, then you got Wines coming back as well. So definitely going to won't load again, and probably won't see the big scores that we have seen in the last couple of weeks. On to the next game, you got Sammy Walsh, but the Suns are quite restrictive in terms of midfield, so probably not one to consider there. Plus, he was tagged last week, so he could come out, but hasn't been considered. He didn't play at all last year against them, so no data there. Besides that, you have an Anderson or a Took. Probably not trusting Took with the C or the VC. Just hasn't put up any ceiling score so far. Whereas the Anderson has put up, he put up a 140 something last year, so I definitely don't mind him if you have him under the roof at Marvel. Definitely can rack it up there. He loves to tackle, loves to mark, so yeah, I can definitely recommend that. This game, I'm only really considering the likes of what's his name, Tom Green. I know he's been pretty poor in the last couple of weeks, but I think he's really due for a big one, and this is the most friendly matchup for midfielders. The only flag is if they're going to tag him. I can't see who would tag him. Maybe an Atkins could go to him, but he hasn't really been doing any sort of run with role. I don't know if a Connor McKenna is in at the moment. Is that his name? I can't remember. Yeah, someone like that could definitely go to him, but I don't think it's. I don't think they will. This is probably the biggest game that you want to look at. You got two really good options in a Merritt and a Martin that could definitely go big in this game. I know a lot of people are looking at Martin, and obviously if you have Merritt, then he's an easy, pretty option to look at. So two great options. No one from Tigers you're really looking at there. Another great sort of matchup here. You got Dunkley and you've got Zorko, both great options as well. Dunkley's unfortunately just missed out, even though he had a 145 against them last year. And then you had Zorgo, who didn't play, unfortunately. He didn't put up any decent score. So I definitely don't mind either of them options. Not looking at anyone from Hawthorn, unfortunately. There's just no one there, and Hawthorn just aren't putting up any significant points to be fantasy relevant. This next game is, the Battle of the Beasts. You got Gorn up against Marshall. Marshall's been super easy in terms of ruck contests. Like, he gives up so many points. We saw the likes of Meek go 117 or something like that last week. Even the week before, I can't remember exactly who scored well against him, but his ruck opponents have been going super big against him. Even if I bring up the DVP in the last 5, he is 27.9 points above where he's, the average ruck against him. So that we can open this up a little bit. So we had, like I said, Meek was a week before that. What am I talking about? Jackson went 116. Meek went 124. Cherry went, I didn't mean to click on it, 127. And then English went 128. So it's pretty much guaranteed that I think Gorn will have a 120 week, if not even bigger. So he's quite up there in terms of my captains. Definitely in my top 5. We'll keep moving along here. On the flip side, obviously, Marshall, we can't go past him. He's been the biggest player in the last fortnight, so he's definitely one you've got to consider. Gorn hasn't been super tough in terms of a ruck matchup, so definitely don't mind him there. Probably not looking at a Steele or an Oliver at all here. There's probably no one else to really consider. In the final game, we've got Dawson, you've got Crouch. Probably not looking at a Laird or anyone else really there. Dawson, I don't mind here. He went, I didn't write it down. I yes, he did. He went 105 and 105 last year, so pretty consistent. I think he could probably kick a few goals in this as well, so I think he's a good C option, pretty safe there. And probably not looking at anyone from the Eagles, so that probably does it. We'll probably just quickly clarify my top 5 captains, and here they are. So we've got Rowan Marshall at number 1. I really like him. Obviously, he's been the most informed player of the last 2 weeks, going 160 and 170. So there's every chance that he still puts up a 150 score this week against Gorn. He just loves to take it out of the ruck and then just put it on the boot and have 30 plus disposals and plus 30 hitouts or whatever it is. So I expect him to continue that role. He looks really fit, and as much as it hurts me to say that, he looks really good, and I wish to trade him. So he's number 1, and pretty consistent with that. Also, he scored a 148 against them last year, and this was against Grundy and Gorn, so he's obviously got great scoring history against the two of them. I'd say it'd be even better with just against the Gorn, so that's something to consider. Number 2, I had Zach Merritt. He scored a 158 against the Tigers last year, and I think they've become an even easier matchup this year. So I really like him, and I think there's a world of possibility that he goes that big as well. So he's an easy number 2. Richmond are just such a fruitful matchup. Number 3, I had Zorko. Just again, very similar to Marshall. Been probably number 2 player of the competition in the last fortnight, if not last month. He has just been unbelievable. I think he probably has another big score again this week against the Hawks. There's only just a little bit, while he's probably a bit lower, just given the no scoring history against Hawthorn. I don't think he played last year, and obviously a completely new role, so it's pretty irrelevant anyway. And the fact that Hawthorn possibly put a bit of attention into him, with whether that's a lockdown role or that's probably just a run with role. So there's every chance that happened. Number 4, I had Tom Green. I think that's more of a gut feel that I think Tom Green's due for a big one. He had a 108 against them last year, so nothing amazing. But the Cats are a super easy matchup for midfielders, and I think there's a possibility that he has 40 disposals and puts up close to 10 tackles, so he could have a really big one. And then number 5, I had Gorn. He's probably a bit lower, just given that he's looked really sluggish in the last couple of weeks. And even the ruck contests, in terms of the ruck split he's having, has sort of decreased a little bit. I think he had closer to 60% last week. I can't remember exactly who was rucking alongside him. But yeah, I think he that last week lower score was due to this week's matchup. I think they probably rested him just a little bit, just so that he's ready for this big matchup. Obviously, it's pretty much Godzilla versus fucking Donkey Kong at this point. So those guys are going to go head to head, and they're going to be massive. So I think he'll be good to go, and I definitely expect him to probably put up a very decent 120, 130 for sure. I think that sort of does it for captains. Hopefully that gives you plenty of captain options. What am I doing this week? So I'll quickly touch on my captain. So I think I'm going to go VC. A merit, that's pretty straightforward. And then I'm sort of tossing up whether I go Ryan, probably not, or I just go a Gorn. I think I'll probably just go that way. I do want to go sort of a Tom Green, but just looking at the fixture, it sort of means I'll go back to back, whereas I like to have a bit more time to think sometimes. Like maybe I can sleep on merits, sort of whatever score it is, and then I can decide whether to take it that night or the next morning. So I like that a bit more, bit more flexibility rather than okay, Tom Green scored a 1 out of 10. I can't really think about it. I just got to go straight in, or I'm busy and I don't really have the time to check on what the scores was, and I'm end up running into merit, and then he puts up a bad score. So I like to have that bit more time difference between them. So I think I'll just go merit into a Gorn. He's been pretty consistent. He's put up some pretty big scores for us. So far this season has been really good, so I expect him to bounce back. He's very much due for one as well. Like I said, like I can show you, he's gone big, smaller, big, smaller, big. Missed his week of the bye, big, small, biggish, small, and then he's definitely due for a big one here. So if you believe in patterns, then he's definitely due. So that's what I'm thinking. In terms of my trades this week, it's pretty straight back. It's pretty much a straight bat. Obviously, subject to who is named and who's not named. So it is, if Graham isn't named, then he's just a simple one to go. And then I'll trade out another red dot rookie, whether that's a Campbell, whether that's a where is he? Garcia. It's just depending who I can make work, right? So, and I'm just going pretty straightforward. I'm going to a Sexton, and Sexton will play on my defensive line for this week. And then I'll probably go with a Frazier. I'm tossing up between Frazier and Richards. I'm still sort of weighing up and looking at all benefits. Obviously, the extra coin in my bank does look a bit nicer. So that's probably the way I'll go this week. I'm probably not looking at a Peatling as much as I first thought I was this week, unfortunately. There's every chance that I go, instead of a Seth Campbell, if he plays, then I think I can go Garcia, can't I? Yeah, I'm going to go Garcia, who may not play, and that still banks me for the 84k for next week. Gets 2 red dot rookies off the bench. Provides an upgrade on field, so then I'm looping between. Let's just lock that in for example. I can trade it and finish it later. Then it's pretty much Sexton goes on field. I can probably loop a couple options. I haven't really looked at it too much. I know I do like the option of Blake Howes, so maybe there's a world I can move Sexton forward. Maybe not. I don't know. I have to play around with it. I'm definitely wanting to loop where I can, because I am concerned about Sharp this week and also Closey. So I would like to loop between them. So I'll probably leave the E on Frazier. Maybe I'll play him on the forward line. Maybe that's what I do. Play him on the forward line. See how he scores on the weekend, because I don't know if I'll have a looping option in the midfielder, given that Clark's usually the sub. At least then I can put a Barnett on field if he plays well, and then I can sort of loop these guys around, so then I can throw... Who plays after that? So we got Closey there. Who was the other player? It was Sharp. So Sharp plays on the Friday night. So then I probably can even throw a Sharp on the bench. If he does well, then hopefully I can loop, and we'll get more clarity around where... I don't know. It's tough. Maybe I just back in Sharp, and then I can look at doing... I just don't know who the sub's going to be. That's the annoying thing. It's so frustrating. Yeah, I'll play around with it. Definitely want to loop this week because I've got some good, decent bench options. in Howes, because I think he does pretty well against St Kilda. And obviously Reed has been pretty good, put up his best score for the season last week. So want to play around with that a lot. We'll just move these guys back real quick. How to do this? There we go. But that's how my team's sort of going to structure up this week. Getting better slowly. Just still probably 1 week behind. Hopefully in the buys I will show my worth, I guess. Buys are looking really good in terms of, I think I've shown this plenty of times, but 1, 2, 3, 4. So pretty good there. Only the 6 players overall. In 13, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 there again. So that's pretty good. Round 14 is where I'm a bit heavy, but given it's so late into the buys, it's not too bad. A lot of these guys will go. So Closey will probably be gone even by next week. Reed will be gone by his buy. I'll trade out Clark probably next week. Howes will go on his buy as well. Barnett will stay. And a lot of these other guys are pretty safe to stay in my team. Sexton's probably the only one that I'm not 100% sure whether he stays or goes, just given his availability with his team once Will Power's back. I'll probably should get rid of this for you guys. And then round 15. Bit lighter on, but again, 2 on the midfield, 1 in the back line, who Bonner may go. I'm still tossing up whether he's a keeper or not. English is there, and McRae is there, and then a couple rookies. He'll probably go on his buy, and Campbell will definitely go away before then. So looking really good in terms of that. But probably leads me into some buy chat. Obviously, I was thinking of doing like a whole buy special, but I probably don't. Probably want to prove myself first, and maybe we'll think about it next year. But the ideal buy structure previously has been 8, 10, 12. That's when we had the 3 buy rounds of each buy round had six teams on the buy each, right? So that meant that we had 22 each week. So, 8 players meant you had 22 players on field. And that's obviously the maximum you can have on field, right? And that's sort of leading into the buys after you trade. So you're having 22 on that field that week. Then the next week you're trading out a minimum of 2 players on that week. So you're getting your 22 on field. Then you're trading 1 player out from the week prior, week ahead. So then that's dropping, your 10 to an 8, and then your 12 to 11. And then the week after you can trade out the 11 to 8. So you're having 22 each week, each round is perfect. That's exactly what you want. You want to have the maximum amount you can on the field. The thing that a lot of people get caught out on is obviously the flexibility of, your trades, right? So it's good to try and forecast who you're trading in, how many midfielders that you have, how many defenders you have, who's going to be playing where. Like for a Sexton, for example, do you want him playing in the forward, or do you want him playing him as a defender for each week? You want to have some flexibility with him going backwards and forth every now and then. So, for example, if I wanted him to play forward in the next couple of weeks, then I'm probably going to have to trade in a defender so I can have that flexibility, because currently I cannot move him. No matter what I'm looking at doing, there's no other defender to play in his spot. So he's sort of stuck in the defense line at the moment. So in the next week or two, I'll have to look at bringing in a defender. And even the likes of Toby Pink needs to go. He's a red dot, right? So he needs to go. He's not making any coins, so he just simply has to go. So that puts me in a bit of a tricky spot to have that flexibility. But it's just something to keep in mind, because you don't want to lock yourself in this sort of, this is my structure and I can't deviate from this. You want to have a bit of flexibility, because week by week your team's going to be changing. You're going to have a lot of rookies on field that possibly aren't playing, and you could really make yourself vulnerable in putting yourself open to having only 17 play or something like that, because a lot of your rookies have been dropped. So something to keep in mind of. But end of the day, you really just want 22 on field each week. So what's the ideal structure for this year? So it's sort of been thrown around a little bit, but I think it's 6, 6, 8, 10. So that's obviously 6 players off this week, round 12, round 13, and then 8 for round 14, and then 10 for round 15. So you got ample amount of time to be able to trade out players as you go, to be able to decrease your later numbers to have your maximum amount of players on field. Obviously, there's caveats with that. Like you got Ruckman. Obviously, it's very unlikely that we're going to have an R3 option unless a Conway has a few more games and sticks it through. Sweet will probably not be playing at that point, so he's not going to be any good to us in round 14 and 15 when the likes of Gorn, Marshall, English have their buys. He's good to have during the first buy, particularly if you're running a Grundy or a Cherry, because he provides that cover. But at this point in time, he's not really providing much besides some cash gen. He's not going to be providing any scores on field. So, which I'm pretty confident. I don't want to speak to him about him a little much, but I'm pretty confident he plays the next 2 weeks. Given that Vizentini did pretty poorly against Hawthorn, and that what's his name, Charlie Dixon is managed, so that probably leads me to think that he will be rucking alongside Vizentini, and that probably means he won't score as much. So if you're running with him at R2, I probably wouldn't recommend it. I'd definitely be looking at upgrading if you can. What else did I want to say about the buy structure? So yeah, 6, 8, 10 is definitely the structure that I'd be recommending. You've got these 2 trades this week, and then you got 3 trades next week before we really get stuck into it. So it's something you really want to be looking at in depth. Probably won't show you too much, nothing at all really. It's just something to keep in mind. Like you want to be looking at who you're trading in. So for example, I'm looking at bringing in Dacos next week. So there's every chance that I'll do that. Then it's trying to figure out what rookies am I bringing in. Okay, I got McCullough coming in next week. He's going to be about 300k. Okay, who am I trading out? Closey. Okay, just trying to figure out. Okay, these pieces are all going to fall in place. How is it going to fall? And what's going to be the best strategy so I'm not losing track position. What else do I need to talk about? There's a few other things. It's really just trying to also forecast what your team's going to look like. So I like to actually go through each week and try and forecast, okay, I'm getting this player in, okay, he's going to slot in here, these guys are on the bye, what is my team actually going to look like for that week, how many rookies am I relying on, how am I structuring up, like I said before, where are these guys specifically sitting in my team, because flexibility really matters. So I'll try and do that through all 4 weeks, which is very difficult, I might add. It's not simple to do, and if you can understand it, then you definitely have a leg up on the competition, because not a lot of people can forecast that far ahead and think that way. So it's something definitely to consider, especially if you're in the top end. I'd highly recommend looking at how your structures is, and even looking at the teams around you. Like if you're top 10, I remember last year when I was sitting at number two spot at this point in time, I was just looking at constantly number 1, even the couple guys below me. Okay, what are they going to do this week? What are they going to do that week? Okay, they've got these guys that need to be traded out because they've maxed out in price, and really start forecasting. Okay, these guys are going to do these things. I can either do something very similar and keep up with them, or I can take them on and make some smarter moves, which I trust my gut, So yeah, really, the buys are a super important part of the season, and you'll see a massive jump up if you get it correct. So hopefully everyone's going well for that. So that's all I just wanted to say about buys. What else do we need to talk about? Okay, we'll go on to the Q&A portion of the video, just to finish off real quick. Got probably another 10 minutes. There's not too many questions this week. So question number 1, we got this from Jim. Thoughts on Cherry and Fife to Sexton and Green, assuming Sweet is playing. So I don't mind those trade-ins. Like obviously Sexton and Green are great trade-in targets. I think they both go pretty big this week. Cherry needs to go and Fife also needs to go as well. Whether Cherry goes this week or goes next week, I don't mind either way. The only thing is, you've said Sweet it must be playing, and like I said before, if he's playing alongside Vizentini, I'd highly recommend just upgrading him and getting up to a Marshall. Probably is the way I'd try and go. If you have a Marshall already, then go a Gorn or go an English, whoever you feel more comfortable with. I think at the end of the day, I think Gorn and Marshall are going to be the top 2 rucks of the year. Unfortunately, I just think English has sort of dropped away a little bit. So that's the only thing I'll probably say with your trades is keep an eye on teams. If Vizentini is still playing, to then you have to do something in that ruck line because there's every chance that Sweet puts up a 60 and you do not want that. Even if it's only a small upgrade and you get to a Lloyd Meek or something like that, I'd probably look at that way. And then maybe you can still get to a Sexton or something like that. But if Sweet is named in his solo, then I do love your trades. I think they're both great, and I think you're moving on to two top of the line guys, so top 8 midfielder and top 6 forward. So I think they're great trades. This next question comes from AFL TMTB. I've unfortunately got 7 players on field with the round 12 bye. So should I be trading Powell and Grundy next week? I will say that probably Grundy is definitely one that you can move off next week. I think he's done his job. I think you really want to move him on to, those top of the line guys. He's not really quite there. I think he's probably, 10 to 15 points, if not 20 points off those top line guys. So I think it's a perfect time to move off of him. It's just you're paying up a lot for those sort of guys, which is absolutely fine, right? You've got the 3 trades and you can make that work. It's just Powell is the interesting one for me. I still think he is top of his line. He may not be top 3 or top 4, but I still think he can be sort of top 6. He's got the role much better than the likes of McRae or something like that, so he can definitely pop up some decent scores. You look at who he's played against. So St Kilda have been tougher matchups. Gold Coast are a super red team as well. Even Essendon are super tough recently, so we can even look at that. For pure midfielders, where are we looking? So we got Essendon, who's a hard matchup. We got St Kilda's a hard matchup, and you got Gold Coast. Where are they gone? Hard matchup as well. So 3 harder matchups in a row. So when he comes up against an easier opponent, which again isn't this week, right? But even after his bye, it's actually a pretty decent run. He's only got 2 harder matchups for the remainder of the season. So I do think he's actually a hold for the year. So I probably wouldn't be looking to move him on. But in saying that, if I know a lot of people have, say, a Heaney, a Zorko, and a Power, that's 3 players in your forward line that have the same buy. So the only way I'd be not trading them one of those guys out is if you only have one round 12 midfielder. Say you have a Tom Green, then you have the flexibility to maybe move Heaney into the midfield, and then you have these two spots as your non-playing primos on the bye, right? Because if you have 3 of these guys that are trying to fit in this spot, then you're possibly having to field one of them, and then you're missing out on a player that could increase your scoring potential throughout the bye. So it's just something to consider. I'd definitely only recommend only having 2 players on the same bye in the same line. You also said you have Sweet at R3, so I can switch him for Grundy. So that's great. So yeah, I definitely recommend moving on to Grundy, or even holding Grundy for that week and then moving on the week after. So you have Sweet come in. Or do you move on to Grundy? Move on to Grundy to like a primo midfielder or something like that. Move Barnett or whoever he has an R3. If you have an R3 there, then if not, trade one in. Throw him at R2. Then the week after, in round 13, then you're trading out a Sweet and getting up to that big primo ruck. It's tough because all the big primo ruckmen are round 14 and round 15, so you're definitely guaranteed to trade them in, even though you want to be trading in people that aren't going to be playing. So that's why I probably recommend jumping onto a Marshall or Gorn or whoever you're looking at in the next week or 2, so this week or next week. Because come around 13, you realistically don't want to be trading out and trading in a guy that's going to have their buy when everyone else is trading people that are no longer going to have their buy and they're going to get an extra game on top of everybody else. So, yes, that's the way I'd probably be thinking about it. So maybe scrap what I was saying there. Probably just move Grundy straight up to a Marshall, and that probably just means that Sweet can stay on the bench for you. Next question comes from Detonator or something like that. What do you think about Travis Boak? So I thought this question was pretty comical. I understand your point that his possibility that he gets forward status. I don't know if that's confirmed just yet, but he does have the round 15 bye, has pretty good run, obviously North this week. And then you also say you love the content. Thank you for the comment. I really enjoy that you're enjoying the content. But I just don't trust Boak, unfortunately. I know forward status for now. I think we get DPPs coming at the end of next week or this week. I can't remember exactly, but it's very soon. If you're pretty confident that he gets it and you think he can be pretty consistent, then I don't mind it. But you pay 30 grand less and you're getting a sextant. Pardon me, sorry. That's where I'd probably go that way a bit more and it's a bit safer. Boak's obviously 35. The role isn't very good. I don't think he's having any midfield time. So these scores are really quite volatile. He's obviously been the sub previously. Even before that, when he played at 4 games, he scored a 52. He's been pretty consistent prior to now, over the last sort of month, but I still don't think he's worth trading in. I know he has a great buy and it can all look rosy, but it just, I'm not quite sure that that's the play you want to go, especially with the likes of Rosie and Wines. Obviously, Rosie is the main one, but Wines is also there as well, so maybe his scoring potential does drop a little bit more. Just a thought process. I don't think it's worth the risk, unfortunately. Not when he is only... What's he owned? 1.1%, yeah. It's a very lonely ship. Next question comes from GPB, GPE. I'll stop there. List a lot of letters. What do you think the ideal buy structure is? How many players max for each position should we be missing for each of the rounds? So I did speak about this before. I think you should only have 2 players on the same buy on the same line. I think that's probably the max you really want to be running because ideally that's the only bench spots you have, right? Otherwise, if you have more than that, then particularly for if you can't put them in your utility, then you're having to field them and you're losing that spot. So I've got to fix this up now. Yeah, that's just my thought process around that. Yeah, like I said, 6, 6, 8, and 10 is my structure, I would say. The next question comes from Power Prawn Stars. Thoughts on JHF? So, Jason Horn-Francis. Says has a great buy and looking great at the moment. So, I do really rate Horn-Francis, but I do still think he is more of an impact player. I know he's been playing really well in the last 2. Again, super easy matchups, scored pretty well. And it's no coincidence that it's been without Rosie in the side. So that's the major flag for me. If Rosie was out for, an extended period of time, then there's definitely a chance that I would even look at bringing him in. But given that, the likes of Rosie's back, you got Butters in there, and then you got Wine sort of as the main 3 guys in there. Horn-Francis plays a lot forward, and we've seen what he can score. He can drop 50s. He can be a pretty consistent 80 player, which at his price is pretty much where he's priced at. So you're pretty much banking on him being 90 to 100 guy to actually have, get some benefit from him. So that's the only flag for him. I probably wouldn't be looking at it with Rosie coming back, unfortunately. Couple more here. We got a question from Clooney. Thoughts on Sheasel to Crisp and Flanders and Sanders to Sexton. So I like the second part of that trade. Give me 1 second, guys. My throat's getting quite itchy. I like the second part of that trade was Sanders to Sexton. I think that's great. You're moving on a red dot and picking up the most traded in player. That's a great upgrade. But you're moving on Sheasel to a Crisp type. So I'd probably like it a bit more if you could move Crisp to a top of the line guy. So what's Crisp priced at? He's like 700k or something like that. What's his name? Not Crisp. Not fucking 700 something k. So you say you have 204k left over. So that can get you up to a 900k defender. You could even get a Luke Ryan in, which probably helps your buy structure even better. So that's probably the way I'd look at it. I know you probably have you then have like minimal cash for next week, but you also have 3 trades coming. So I definitely don't mind that, and I don't always recommend just banking coin for next week. A lot of the time, the first week of trades is a lot of rookie fix ups. So it's like trading out 3 red dots to get in 3 rookies that possibly are going to secure play throughout the buys, right? Or picking up a mid pricer. So that's the way most people probably do it, and I'd probably recommend doing that way, because at the end of the day, you're trading in a primo that's going to be having a buy later on in a couple of weeks' time. So besides that, I don't mind your trades. It's just I'm not quite sure on this Shees or to Crisp play. I'm not super hot on Crisp, but even though I do see the appeal, it's just probably not from a Sheasel who can still definitely be a top of the line. It just seems like you're sort of, I don't see the upside really there. The last question comes from Real Zippy. Thoughts on Power to Fisher and McKercher to Sexton. So very similar to the last one. I love the McKercher to Sexton. That's pretty straightforward. Red dot rookie to Sexton. Great one. But again, Power. People are trying to move off Power. I don't understand it. Unless they know something that I don't. I think his role has definitely improved in the last couple of weeks, given that what's his name? Will Phillips dropped out, so it's still 50%, so definitely not bad there. He's doing 80s, and like I said, I showed you, he played against 3 tougher matchups in the last 3 weeks and still put up, 75s to 80s. What happens when he actually comes up against some decent opponents and can put up, 90s to 100s again? So I'm just not looking at moving on Power at all, but I do highly like Fisher as a trade-in target. If you can make it work with another trade-in, like maybe moving on a Closey, there is a 100k difference there, so you do need a bit of money in the bank. Maybe it's a 5. Maybe you have another rookie like a Roberts or something like that. I definitely recommend doing that. Just don't like the power play. I just feel like it's very sideways to go from, someone who's possibly top 6 to someone who's probably possibly top 6 as well. So yeah, just not sure on that one. But that'll sort of do it for today. So it's been a bit of a longer one. Just thought with obviously the buys around the corner, I think it was worth touching on there and doing a bit of a deep dive in what you should be looking at there. So, but I'll probably leave you with it. Hopefully you have a great week. Teams will be coming out very shortly, and hopefully there's no surprises. Hopefully your team, or you have all green dots, and you can jump up in the ranks and really set yourself for the buys. But yeah, hopefully you like. Please leave a like on the video, subscribe. Tell a friend. We're on the road to 750 subscribers. Where I think we're about 665, so less than 100 to go. So hopefully we can get there pretty shortly. But hopefully you guys have a good week, and talk to you later. Bye.